Click the links to join the channel here over on Subscribe Starvers. Sincere thanks to everyone who has been supporting the New Computing Fund. So Dave Chappelle, what a difficult video this will be to make. I wonder how I'm ever going to get through this. So no editing, one take. It's like, yeah, we know. That's not something to brag about. So Dave Chappelle on Saturday Night Live, and excuse the euphemism so I can stay on YouTube just one more day. So someone said they realized the show would be better off if it was just him doing stand-up the whole time. Yeah, I don't know why people watch Saturday Night Live. And like last year, I did a kind of a deep dive into it, and I went back and I watched some of the stuff from the beginning, and it was a different show. It was like they were trying to figure out what it was. It took them a few years to figure out what it was, and then I jumped around through it. I was like, yeah, I mean, there's good skits in episodes, but the whole thing feels like something back when people were perhaps drinking more or doing more pharmaceuticals. To think that like Saturday Night Live would ever be something you would. It just didn't. Like there were good skits, I'll say in the '80s and '90s, but overall, I mean, it was always kind of what it was. It was kind of a left wing show, and then just lately after 2016, I'll say they took off the mask where they're insufferable now. Where I just can't imagine anyone who's voluntarily watching them. So Dave can joke about how evil Europeans are, and there's no problem whatsoever. And he's done that throughout his careers. Everyone else has also, but he mentioned too protected classes, and don't say them in the comments because YouTube knows all those dog whistles. I was thinking I got to make people mods, so if you see comments that'll get me in trouble, you can delete them. But one, everyone, like in the Telegram, who I'd make mods is the people who are more likely to say the comments that would get me kicked off of YouTube. And two, I forgot how to make mods. I think I made a few people mods, and then I went back to YouTube settings, and I can't find it. So if someone can tell me how to make those, I appreciate it. So some things are not funny. Team White is funny. That's Christian, no problem, man. As long as they're like Republican Christian and very fair, sure. But those other two protected groups are that's haram or verboten. So them being offended, that makes it even funnier, especially to see Greenblatt on Twitter. He gets like everything he does gets ratioed, and he just keeps going off with it. Offending pussies, I think that's doing the Lord's work. Pussies need to be shaken up a bit, and there's a lot of shaking up going on up on Twitter right now. People will get kicked off, and then you get back on there and you're like, help me find my friends, and then you find your friends again, and I mean, I will say Telegram is really good for respawning, so it's convenient to use that. So where we are now is the only group that isn't tribal and defending itself, though that is kind of slowly changing, which is, may you live in interesting times. Well, strap yourself in because they're about to happen. You're going to understand a lot of things that your great grandparents went through. So if you want to dehumanize European, Christian, whatever, it's fine. Dehumanize, degrade them, no problem, because Hollywood said it was fine for the past 60 years. The further you go back after you put on the glasses, you see it more and more. Like even going where I just saw the Magnificent Seven, I think a little bit was on Odyssey, and I had to play in the background. I was hearing some of it, and it's like I saw some of the stuff in there, and that was I think it was in the 60s when that movie came out. And there was a little bit of it there. So the hate that is coming from Hollywood, and it's coming from Hollywood. And Dave points it out a little bit, a tiny little bit, very carefully. And he's a very nuanced. He knows what he's doing. I mean, but he's also been doing stand up probably for 20 to 30 years. No, probably at least 20 years. Anyway, the only thing I'm familiar with him really is his the Half Baked movie, and even then there was a couple of lines in the movie that struck me as odd, like as passively aggressive, and it didn't it didn't set the tone of the movie. And then later I learned a little bit more about Dave. I'm like, oh, this guy's got issues. Like, yeah, he's a brilliant comedian, but he's definitely got issues. With him, with himself, his own tribe, with he's got issues with everybody. And anyway, so suddenly Hollywood has been learning that they are living in a glass house this whole time, and people are looking in and seeing that, well, they're naked, and they've got a lot of farm animals in there. So Hollywood and Twitter and the liberal elites are absolutely fine with any anti-European hatred. That's encouraged. by Hollywood for some weird reason. But no other jokes are allowed. Suddenly, it's not funny. They put on their serious face, like, you just crossed the line, bucko. Now you're going to get deplatformed, and the banks are going to kick you out, and you're going to get doxxed and fired, and we're going to destroy your life and try to make you self-delete. It's like, that's weird. That's weird. So it's not that deep. They really just, and now I realize I don't know if I should put this on YouTube or not. It's like every day is just going to be the last day eventually. So it's not that deep. They just hate you. Like, if you don't see that by now, you don't want to see it. And I think people are seeing it. All the Frankfurt School gobbly twat that they put behind it, a lot of semantics and many syllabled words. It's just all propaganda coming from their Frankfurt School type of stuff. You can't have a society where every group is off limits, but one group's Tribe Europa. It's like open seasons on them. People are eventually going to look around and go, is it Eric Weinstein? He was the guy who was up in a college in Oregon or Washington, where the school's like some really hippy-dippy school, and they're telling certain people not to come to class one day. And he's like, I'm going to come. Why would I not come to? First, they were doing something like where, I don't know, POX students were not coming to class one day. It's like, but you paid for the university. Why would you not attend? Then the next year they said something like, oh, well, non-POX people need to not come to school. I wish I was there. I wish I went to college in those interesting times, but I went to I was in STEM, and we didn't see just to see that. I would have said, "Oh, you guys can suck my balls." Thank God. Well, I mean, back then I identify as a person of color. If I had to go to school now, I identify now as a woman of color, because I discovered that is what I actually am. I am a woman of color. Anyway, so Weinstein, to his credit, and he's an interesting guy, said, "Suck my balls." I'm not, he politely explained that he's not going to leave campus, and he didn't think that was such a good idea. For different reasons. He's done what do you call those? Not those SoundClouds, not those audio podcast things, Clubhouse or something. Some kind of, it's like a phone line from the 80s or 90s, or something like that. He was doing a talk like that, and he was talking about how he feared different people like us getting in-group preferences and seeing ourselves as a tribe, which a lot of people are talking about this. I mean, it's a big issue. It's just not kind of a YouTube issue. So I think even back then, I forget the name of that campus. It was some kind of, had like Redwoods or something on it. Even back then, he kind of was looking into the future and saying, like, yeah, it's not a good idea to people to get tribal unless you're the major tribe, which is why he was not happy about. Like, he knew that if you start getting tribal, then everyone's going to get tribal, because that's just game theory. Like, anyone could have predicted that. He's just one who was kind of looking into the future and going, yeah, this is not a good idea. I mean, but the ship has sailed. Like, the ship is actually, there's no returning to harbor for that one. So credit to him for that. Anyway, you can't have a society where everyone's tribal except one tribe. It's like eventually they're going to wake up, and people have definitely, and start seeing themselves as a tribe also, which is a shame. It's like country had tried to make it work, but you can't make something work where you have somebody who's deliberately throwing, poking left, poking right, and they go, oh, that guy poked you. It's like, yeah, it's not. I think this person is the problem. It's not anyway. So obviously that's going to lead to a redress. Dave is acting like it's a little bit of a pressure release valve. Though he's careful, and he's like, ultimately he has his own, like, he's not some external messiah savior. He has an axe to grind, and like he does not like people like you and me. And though it's weird to say this, I don't know if he likes black people either. I don't know who he likes. I don't think he likes anyone. He's got some serious issues, but he's not. He's not going to be the one who's. Kanye is a much. Ooh, I probably shouldn't have said that. He's a much more interesting character. I could have said like opposite of East or something. He's a much more interesting character to me because he has a different directive. It's religiously. His motivation is a little bit more religious minded. So he's Kanye 2024. You think I'm kidding when I say that? No, I mean, look at the other options. You go, could he do worse? Probably not. So Norm Macdonald was also a pretty good press release. I don't know when he was on, the 80s, the 90s. He was one of the fun. I guess he probably was the funniest guy. I mean, they had a lot of funny guys who did funny skits, and then you looked at the rest of the skits, and you're like, I mean, that's why they take the best of the skits. I mean, it is what it is. You're doing this stuff semi-live. So he was on there back in the day, and then they fired him because he was like he's a perfect guy because he was constantly releasing the pressure, and they fired him, and then the pressure in society when it started, like political correctness had a push in the 90s, and then people laughed it off, and then after 9/11 it had this huge push again, and people just they acquiesced to it. And then 20 years later, you're going to see the results of it in a few years, where it's going to get spicy. So now Dave is not my cup of tea. I listen to him, and I hear someone who's got very serious issues. Well, I think every group on Earth, mostly, maybe except his tribe. But the more I look at it, it's like I don't know. I don't know. I don't. I think he's like a lot of genius artists are not playing with a full deck, as is what it is. So I think it's better to to crap on everyone, just because that way. It's like it used to be like that to some extent. If you're ignoring certain groups, it's like what do you think is going to happen? The alt community, where you do have free speech to focus on these other groups, it's like, well, there's no need for them to crap on white people or Christian people or men, because that's done by the mainstream community. So you go to these alt communities, and Greenblatt's looking at Gab and Telegram and Odyssey and Bit Chute and Shing and World, all these other platforms. He's losing his freaking mind. It's like, yeah, but you created those platforms by pushing for censorship on the mainstream platforms, and instead of dialing back censorship, he just wants to censor all the alt platforms too. It's like you could turn the heat down on this right now if you wanted to. But I mean, you're dealing with people that are like just not self-aware. Like it's not in their nature to avoid conflict, and it's just, I don't know. I think at this point it might just anyway. So the return balance to the force by crapping on everyone else on Gab and Telegram, and Twitter's loosening up a little bit. It's still not like I'm the past few days I spent a lot of time on Twitter, because I'm on Twitter for like 3 days and then I get kicked off, sort of thing. It's loosening up a little bit, but it's not crazy. So the cool thing about crapping on sacred cows is that the media and the Twitterverse, they try to muster up some kind of moral indignation, righteous outrage, but people just don't care that much. It's like the boy crying wolf, but wolves turn out to actually not be very dangerous in reality. Really, it's like the bears are crying wolf in a field of angry beavers. Maybe that made more sense in my head. But credit to Saturday Night Live for bringing Dave on. How anyone can watch Saturday Night Live is beyond me. It's really an angry left-wing echo chamber. They do comedy bits about deleting babies, or about, angry. There's that song by that woman. Did a song about the angry European men, which I actually clipped that and put it on Odyssey and Bit Chute. Fascinating. But they don't talk about any other angry groups, just European groups that are angry. Weird. Or they don't talk about anything real that's going on. It's just Bolshevik talking points. I mean, you got an 80-year-old dementia patient in office. You got a lot to make fun of with Kamala and Biden and people on your side of the aisle. Like, you got your guy in office. This is the time to make fun of him. And they're like, no, we're gonna make fun of Trump. Why? You're nothing, like, obviously they're nothing but partisan, biased hacks. So at this point, it's NBC, I think. I assume NBC is subsidizing the show, because kind of to cancel it is an admission that it's Bolshevik propaganda. Bolshevik propaganda is not selling. That's the only thing that kind of can pop into my head, because I just can't imagine that. I can't imagine that they're making ad revenue. So what is it, like Saturday Night Live, obviously, but it's like 10 or 11 o'clock at night. So you're telling me that many? It's like that. There's that many left-wing people who are sitting down and watching that nowadays. It strikes me as a little bit odd, because I mean, I've seen the show every now and then. I'll watch it, and I'm like, I'll watch bits of it, and I'm like, I'm like a song about deleting kids. Is that really legitimately where the left wing is now? It's a trip. Anyway, I don't know if this was careful enough for you too. I don't know, but a very sincere thank you to everyone who's been supporting the new computing fund. I don't even have a cell phone now, because my cell phone died. I ordered a new one. Turns out I ordered the wrong one, which is effing weird, because I had ordered two of the same one for a few before, and it worked. Now so I had to send that back, order the new one. It's like, it still hasn't arrived. I'm like, so do I kind of need a cell phone? I feel a little bit naked without it. Actually, I do almost everything on tablet now, but I still need the cell phone and a computer fund. So thanks to Wargoose and Vegan and everyone has just been going kind of hog wild with the donations. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. See you guys on the next episode.